speaking of the rally, we're going to go there. This is the call-in discussion for tonight, the rally. We're going to talk about that. I did tell you I would do a recap, so I have a couple of clips that I do want to show you. I think I'm going to start with those clips first. So obviously, people have criticized the rally from the get-go before it even happened. People are still criticizing the rally now, and that includes Miss Rachel Maddow. Now, I talked about this earlier this morning on Rising. Jimmy Dore actually called her out here and said, Maddow is a straight up psychopathic warmonger. That's actually not hyperbole. She's pretending that NATO and the US did not intentionally provoke this war. And she focuses on some rando holding Russia flag to discredit the peace rally. Of course she did. Let me show you this clip here. So many incorrect things in this.
I mean, truly random rally on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. A rally in support of Russia, I guess, with all.
She doesn't even know. She's guessing. No, the rally was not in support of Russia. It was a call for peace rally. It was an anti-war rally. Look at the description. We talked about this on RBN earlier. Pro-Russia demonstrators rally in Washington, D.C. Now, I was there. I covered the event, live streamed the event. I didn't see anyone from MSNBC interviewing any of these activists. You know who I did see interviewing these activists, these protesters, and some of the speakers? The independent media journalists and commentators. They were the ones actually interviewing people. MSNBC just showed up there to get some footage that they thought was something, which was really done nothing, to make it seem like this event was something that it wasn't. Let's go on.
Given all the Russian flags, at least a rally against the U.S. supporting Ukraine in trying to stand up against the Russian invasion of their country. This was a tiny event. It was small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. There were Proud Boys there.
Notice how she said it's a tiny event. It was very small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. I'm going to show you a clip that shows you actually what the crowd looked like. Because, see, they purposely showed shots when it wasn't filled in, obviously. If it was so tiny, why did she cover it? If it was that tiny. It was estimated there were at least 1,000 people there. Let's go on.
There were some of the white supremacist groups you'd recognize from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago.
How did she know that? Where are those people in this video? Did they interview any of these people? How does she know that those people were? How does she know that? You see how she can just jump on mainstream media and say anything without any proof or evidence? She don't have to back anything up. She argued, remember, she was able to argue that her show is not news, it's entertainment.
Also represented prominently the remains of the bizarre Lyndon LaRouche cult. There were a lot of people with Russian flags, also the occasional flag of the former Soviet Union. Also, at least one person who guest hosts for Tucker Carlson on the Fox News channel was there as a featured speaker.
Notice how, out of all the people who spoke at the rally, notice how she focused on Tulsi Gabbard. Do you see what they do? I don't understand why people take mainstream media seriously at all. I really don't. You cannot take them seriously. There were over 20 speakers at this rally, and they zero in on Tulsi Gabbard. That's on purpose.
There were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists, a lot of them. There were cryptocurrency promoters. It was a really weird group. It was a small rally and a weird one.
A lot of them, a small rally and a weird one. And for people who don't understand, even when I went to the Assange rally in DC, I think they estimated there was like 200 to 300 people, which is big for the ones in DC. The way it was explained to me, they usually don't even get like 100 people to show up. So that Assange rally that I went to in October, like they said, that was pretty good, you know, size wise, that was great. And I want people to understand this one right here. This has been the largest one. This has been the largest one. This probably will be the largest one this year, unless we continue to grow. We need to have more rallies to call for peace. But I know some people are like, oh, 1,000 people, that's small. That's the largest one that I've been to since the George Floyd protest. So people have to understand that. Let's go on.
But that's what it looks like. That's the assemblage of short straws and split ends and loose change and loose electrons that's advocating in this country that Russia's in the right in this war and America.
Notice how they keep showing the same people. All the people that were at this rally, they keep showing the same guy. This is what they do.
America should be on Putin's side as he keeps invading other countries.
Not one person who gave a speech at this rally said that. Not one. Don't believe me? Go watch the stream. I recorded all the speeches. Not one person said that.
I mean, no disrespect to the Americans who turned out as part of this small event this weekend, but it's not like they represent a big constituency that is arguing for this pro-Russia point of view.
You see that? She already letting you know you're small. And Rachel Maddow damn well knows that event was published everywhere. She damn well knows what the event was. She's trying to portray it like it was something else. Now, General Johnny chimed in here. I appreciate this, General Johnny. He said, if this rally was so tiny and insignificant, why is she covering it? This is the same thing that I said. If it's that small, why are you bringing attention to it? What? She sure as hell didn't bring attention to the Julian Assange rally, including the fact that that same day there were over 5,000 people locking arms around the parliament in the UK. She didn't call attention to that. Now, I told you guys before, we'll do recap. I'm going to show you a couple of speeches from people who had better internet quality than me. Ford Fisher did an awesome job. Now, Ford Fisher, I believe what he did, because he was next to me at one point, I believe Ford Fisher, he live streamed part of it, some of it, but then he also had another device where he recorded speeches and interviews as well. So his video quality is going to be phenomenal. The internet connection wasn't so great. I think this was the spottiest, fuzziest internet connection I've had to deal with on the ground with StreamYard. Plus StreamYard mobile is not great. They don't have an app, so you have to log in through Chrome. I'm looking at other options as well. But I want to show you some of the speeches. So shout out to Ford Fisher for this, because he was there doing the damn thing. So first up, we want to give a shout out to Tara Reid. I want you to hear some of the things that were said, because obviously mainstream media and some people in independent media are trying to frame things in a way that are false. So here's Tara Reid.
Hello, everyone. You know my story. Joe Biden didn't ask for my consent. And he is not, his administration is not asking for the American citizens' consent to enter into this proxy war against Russia via Ukraine. Over $100 billion in weapons and aid, and it's going where? We don't know. It's a money laundering scheme. There needs to be a congressional investigation into Joe Biden for what he's doing for all of us. I will be there for you. I will tell my story at that congressional investigation, and I will go under oath. Now, we're here today not because we have anything bad to say about the Ukrainian people. They are suffering. The Ukrainian workers are suffering. The Russians are suffering. This is about the Western Empire that has basically used the military-industrial complex and weaponized it to these endless wars. Julian Assange has given up his freedom to give us that information. When he told us about the 2014, when he published the information about the 2014 coup that was Western-backed, that led to this moment in history that we are now. The Biden administration is taking us to World War III, and we're not going to have it. You know, there's a Shakespeare saying, as flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, they kill us for their sport. The elites are not going to kill us. There are more of us than them. We are going to stop this war and stop the endless funding to Ukraine. I see the Russian flags out there. Hello, Russia. You are not our enemy. Russia is not our enemy. China is not our enemy. The military-industrial complex has hijacked the Democratic and Republican Party. And it didn't take much money to do it, did it? So we have to take it back. And we have to demand from these politicians. Because remember, they work for us. We don't work for them.
That's right.
I want to leave on this note. Free Julian Assange. 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 Thank you.
Awesome. So that was Tara Reid doing the damn thing there. Tara, like, you know, she set the house on fire, I think. And I think she made some really awesome statements. She doesn't mess around. Now, notice, did you hear Tara Reid say anything in that statement about, what did she say? One of the very first things that she said in her statement was, we acknowledge the pain and suffering that the Ukrainian people are going through. But see, Rachel Maddow isn't going to tell you that. She's not going to show you that. Of all the people to show at the rally of Tulsi Gabbard, Dennis Kucinich was there. He was a Democrat politician. Notice Rachel Maddow didn't show you that. They didn't show you Tara Reid. They didn't show you Chris Hedges. They didn't show you Jill Stein. There were over 20 speakers. They didn't show any of these people. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Now, next up is Max Blumenthal's speech, and I thought this one was really great as well. So take a listen to this.
This city filled up with homeless Vietnam veterans, often still wearing their camouflage BDU, at the dawn of a homeless crisis that is now completely consuming our cities and which is apparent all around us. It was only recently, just a few years ago actually, as I walked through a Riverside Park by my home here in DC in Anacostia, that I noticed a small memorial to the Bonus Army, commemorating another generation of US veterans who had been abandoned and betrayed by their government. Nearly 90 years ago, thousands of veterans of World War I gathered on Anacostia Flats and along the Potomac, in Hoovervilles, makeshift camps, at the dawn of the Great Depression, to demand the bonuses they had been promised and denied by the US government. They had fought in a segregated army, but they now stood together and lived together as black men and white men. Some were supporters of communism. Some were supporters of the kind of America First style conservatism that was becoming in fashion at the time. And all were demonized by a government that saw this show of cultural and political unity as a threat to an empire in the making. Army Chief of Staff Douglas MacArthur warned that pacifism and its bedfellow communism are all around us, as he and the future heroes of the US effort in World War II, Dwight Eisenhower and George Patton, sent their forces against these betrayed veterans. And on July 28, 1932, MacArthur and the US Army attacked the Bonus Army and massacred them with tanks, cavalry, and machine guns, following orders to kill the men they had fought beside below the US flag in the trenches of Europe. Now we stand here 90 years later in the same city where the
I didn't think about that, mister. Yeah, that's a good point.
This massacre occurred, but countless disastrous wars later. And on the precipice of another economic crisis, we know that by coming here today, by coming together across artificial political boundaries and cultural lines imposed on us by our elites. We stand in the muddy boots of the bonus army as an imperial regime in deep decline trembles before us. And that's why it's so tragic to me that this rally has come under attack, not only by the usual suspects in the corporate media, but by sectarian forces that parade as progressive and anti-war. They say that right and left should not come together, that our petty differences must define and divide us, and that this rally is a danger to the movement. Well, let me speak now as a journalist who's met and lived with people on the other side of the guns of U.S. empire. Let me speak about the Palestinians I met in the rubble of Gaza who'd seen their families wiped out by U.S.-made missiles and howitzers fired by Israel's apartheid army simply because they dared to resist their dispossession. Let me speak to you about the Syrian people I met in Damascus who'd seen their cities surrounded by NATO-backed jihadist militias and who now withstand Israeli bombs and sadistic U.S. sanctions. Let me talk to you about the people I met in Venezuela, Nicaragua, in Cuba, the troika of resistance, who have bravely weathered the storm of CIA destabilization plots and economic blockades. The people I know in the Horn of Africa, from Eritrea to Addis Ababa, who have seen 5 million people displaced by a US-backed proxy war that few Americans even know took place. The Koreans I met, who've been separated from their own people and families by an imposed divide, who have not known peace since the genocidal US war waged on them. And the people I know in the republics of Donbass and Lugansk, who have suffered for 9 years under the US-supplied bombs of the Ukrainian military and its sig-heiling neo-Nazi brigades, who celebrate and worship the Nazi collaborator Stepan Bandera, who murdered my own people in one pogrom after another. These people that I know and that I met on the other side of US empire, they don't care if you're right-wing or left-wing. They don't care if you're a camel-clad Trumper or a progressive social justice activist. They don't care if you're vaccinated and masked and boosted. They don't care if you are libertarian or communist. All they want you to do is be out here today to rage against this sick, satanic, neoconservative war machine. That's what they want. Our corporate media, which is just a megaphone for our oligarchic elite, is constantly telling us who our enemies are. They said our enemy was in Serbia when I was a teenager. Then they said our enemy was in Afghanistan. Then they said our enemy was in Iraq. And maybe our enemy was down the street in the local mosque. And we are here today to say that we know who our real enemy is. Our enemy is not in Russia. Our enemy is you, the corporate media, and the oligarchy that you speak for. Our enemy is the empire that's robbed us of our rights, that's looted our treasury for its insane imperial regime change wars, and that has hounded and jailed real journalists like Julian Assange. They say we need to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here. We say that we will fight the neoconservatives over here before they kill millions more over there. Can you dig it?
He said, can you dig it? I forgot about that part.
That's not our war. Whether in Ukraine or the war they're planning over the Straits of Taiwan, their war is not our war. Our war is for the hundreds of thousands of homeless people sleeping in the cold. Our war is to clean up our rivers. Our war is to fix our crumbling schools and roads. Our war is to fight for the minds of our brothers and sisters subjected to a nonstop tidal wave of corporate media propaganda. Our war starts here. Our war starts today. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So that one was from Max Blumenthal. I thought that was a really good speech. I'm not going to show everyone's speech, obviously. We don't have time for that. I'm sorry, just keep it as it is. But also, Jimmy Dore had a pretty good speech. I want to go ahead and show that one as well. People are already trying to criticize this. Greg Bruce says Warriors. Yeah, that's where that comes from. Can you dig it? I think that comes from Warriors. Is that from Warriors or no? That is from Warriors. That's right. For the younger people in the chat, Warriors is a movie. It's about street gang. It's a really cool movie. If you haven't seen it, it's a cult classic. You need to watch it. And that's one of the things that they say in the movie. But they also say this line that you may not be familiar with. They say, "Warriors, come out and play." Oh man, they had a rough night in that movie. Anywho, here's the speech from Jimmy. I want to show this, and then I'm going to give what I think were pros and cons about the rally. And then I have a quick announcement, a warning that you need to be aware of. And then I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll do call-in. So let's get into this.
Jimmy! Hello, thank you. I'm going to head for Nelly one more time. It's great to be here. It's really encouraging to see so many people come out like this. It really warms my heart. And it reminds me of my best friend, Barry Crimmins. He was a hilarious and courageous comedian, a staunch critic of the U.S. government. And I know if he was alive, he'd be here today.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. His mic went out for a little bit, and then... Okay, here we go. He had to start over.
Hilarious and courageous comedian. He was a staunch critic of the U.S. government, who I know if he was alive would want to be here today. And people would always ask him, hey, if you don't like America, why don't you move to another country? And he would say, because then I'd become a victim of our foreign policy. It's not what people can't hear in bed. Why is this? It's too low.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It happened twice. Sorry. Okay.
Hilarious, and he was a courageous comedian. He was a staunch critic of the U.S. government. If he was alive, I'm sure he'd be here today. People would always ask him, hey, if you don't like America so much, if you're such a critic, why don't you move to another country? And he said, I would, but then I'd become a victim of our foreign policy. Joke worked twice. He used to say there's a reason why there's no viable third party in America. It's because corporations don't want to cut a third check. And that's a shame, because the two parties in America that we have just ain't cutting it. They both support sending over $100 billion to Ukraine. We could have spent that money saving lives with universal health care, but instead we spend that money taking lives overseas, which is our specialty. We send them what we call foreign aid. Foreign aid, that's money to another country. We drop care packages on their heads from the sky, but it's not full of food. And the only money we have left over, we're going to spend shooting down hobby balloons. Can you imagine if the Independence Day was just about balloons? I mean, the movie, right? The aliens are invading, and man, they are taking their time. At least Macy's figured out how to make a balloon look like somebody. They could attack us with Superman or something. Would Mickey Mouse's adorable ears eavesdropping on our cell phone conversations be so much worse than the NSA? I don't think so. Do you know we can end this war today through diplomacy, but our politicians want to enrich weapons manufacturers so they keep donating to them to the tune of $100 billion. Chris Hedges has called America a mafia state. Systems of governance that are seized by a tiny cabal become mafia states. The military-industrial complex and the Ukraine war represent an orgy of looting and corruption. America is the most powerful mafia that has ever existed. And the hitmen in that mafia have military pilot licenses. The difference, The difference between our government these days and the mafia in the 1940s, well, the mafia in the 1940s helped defeat the Nazis. They used longshoremen and union leaders. It's a sad day when you can't even trust the mafia anymore. Do you know what America really needs? We need to take the money out of Ukraine and give it to everybody here so we can buy a balloon and a gun. That's the only way we can settle this. We all need to be floating around shooting each other down out of the sky. Better yet, the guns shoot vaccine syringes. Yeah, that's America. Eat boosters, you motherfuckers. America is so corrupt, even our Peace Prize winners are war criminals. Barack Obama won a Peace Prize and he immediately ramped up the war in Afghanistan, starting bombing in Libya, put a hit on Osama bin Laden, dropped 26,000 bombs in Syria. And that's the thing about those Peace Prizes. Nobody ever tries to win a second one. I have a list of things we could have bought with that $100 billion instead of sending it to Ukraine for killing people. Instead of sending money to Ukraine, we could get President Biden a dog that knows where to lead him when a press conference is over.
I'm sorry, that was...
We sent enough money to Ukraine to buy everybody a tank of gas.
Damn.
For all the money we've given to Ukraine, do you know how many eggs we could buy? Almost a dozen. With $100 billion, you know, they can say you can end homelessness for $20 to $40 billion. We could have ended homelessness, then restart homelessness, then say we were only kidding, and then end it again. We can't end homelessness in America. We can't even fix the bridges that the homeless people live under. That's how corrupt we are. Every American, for $100 billion, could have had a home. But it's way more important that we make sure nobody in Ukraine has a home, because now it's going to be turned into a crater. We could give every homeless person in America $160,000. Or, if you want to help Americans but still show our support for Ukraine, we could buy every homeless person in the United States 7,000 Ukraine flag fleece blankets. We could have used that $100 billion. $100 billion would have provided universal health care to all the people in Algeria, Botswana, Morocco, Rwanda, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Romania, Croatia, Mexico, and Peru. Oh, wait. Those countries already have universal health care. My bad. For the $100 billion, we could buy 2 FTX collapses. For $100 billion, we could buy every person on Earth a blue check mark on Twitter. Because shouldn't we all have an equal opportunity to be insufferable assholes? For $100 billion, we could get Chick-fil-A to stay open on Sundays and perform gay weddings. For $100 billion, we could buy an entire separate Russian invasion of Ukraine and have enough left over to pay Hunter Biden's monthly salary for the rest of his life. For $100 billion, we could break the Bank of England 3 times.
Hi, Julia.
We could buy every man, woman, and child in America an opportunity to pick something really nice from the Goop catalog. I know I didn't get that joke either.
I didn't know what that was. What is... You guys, someone tell me in the comments, what is the Goop? What's a Goop catalog? What is that? Let me know.
For $100 billion, we could have the entire cast of Shark Tank dropped into an actual Shark Tank.
Yeah.
We could pay for 90 Alex Jones lawsuits. We could buy a shit ton of balloons to spy on China and still have enough money left over for complete regulatory capture. Isn't that special? We could have gotten like 5 experimental drugs approved. For $100 billion, we can remake the Marvel Avengers movie with the entire original cast, but as a porno. We could do that 90 times over. We could have spent that money on transportation, high-speed rail, but it was more important to fund the people who duct tape somebody to a lamppost with their pants pulled down. We could cure cancer, but Big Pharma wouldn't be happy with that because they prefer sick people instead of healthy ones. With the money we sent to Ukraine, we can hire an entirely separate new police force to protect us from the current police force. We could have funded everyone having free college instead of buying a Mount Kilimanjaro's worth of blow for Zelensky. Why are we sending that money to Nazis in Ukraine when we could be funding Nazis here in America struggling to buy eggs?
Now, some people already took that comment and they've tried to spin it and make it seem like it's something that it's not. Some people are taking that comment and saying, see, we told you guys, like Jimmy Dore supports Nazis or whatever. The context is very important. Of course, they didn't show the context.
Isn't that just like our government to neglect all the Nazis we have here in America? This is really a fight over nuclear war. Just across the road, there's a statue of Albert Einstein. And man, he looks depressed. He once said, if I could do it all over again, I'd be a plumber. You know why he said that? I thought it was because his toilet was always backed up. And it was because the military-industrial complex used his science to kill people. They took Einstein's discovery and used it to melt the skin of Japanese civilians. Entire cities full of children and animals extinguished in less than a minute. Generations poisoned by radiation. Bombs today are much more powerful than those bombs we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I know there's some people who wouldn't show up to this peace rally, this anti-war rally, because of some of the speakers they didn't like on this stage. And I get what they're saying. They're saying, hey, I want to help stop a nuclear war, but not with those people. I get it. I'm the same way. My house caught on fire a couple of months ago, and when the firemen showed up, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What's your views on Social Security and Medicare? I mean, I get this is a scary situation. My house is on fire. But first, I need to get your stance on LGBTQ and gender-affirming surgery.
JB, if you're still in the chat, that's the house is on fire thing.
I know my house is burning down, but are you vaxxed? I need to see proof of at least one booster. I need to know what your position is on gender-affirming surgery. What age should it start and what's your cutoff? And they're standing there looking at me like I'm fucking crazy. I guess you don't get to put out my fire then, and my house is going to burn down. I hope you're happy. So when people give me a litmus test and they ask me what kind of lefty am I always say I'm a Sandy Koufax lefty. Okay. When it comes down to survival, which this is, there is no gift basket with a card thanking you for your participation. You don't get everything you attended to like in a hotel, but maybe you do get to survive. And that's the whole point. Save the nitpicking for Whole Foods. The people who won't be attending today had never any intentions of doing so. And if it wasn't one of the speakers, it would have been the weather. It would have been because they have more important things to do than survive. They'll be home watching CNN not cover this all day. The people who don't want to attend this rally because they don't like a speaker reminds me of what W.C. Fields said, that he won't drink water because fish fuck in it. You have to work with people you disagree with big time, even sometimes people you hate, because we need each other to survive. I'm reminded of the words of Frederick Douglass, who said, I will join with anyone to do good, but with no one to do bad. If Black Panthers can march hand in hand with the KKK down Las Vegas Boulevard to get welfare payments reinstated. We can join hands with the right wing, the libertarians, the left, the socialists, the communists, everybody to stop a nuclear war. And what's happening right here at this rally is what actually scares the hell out of the establishment. Everybody from the left, everybody from the right, everybody from the middle coming together to realize that we have more in common than divides us, and we share a common enemy. That enemy is the military-industrial complex and the oligarchy. The same oligarchy that did a controlled demolition of our economy, and then they want me to hate my neighbor for the pain I'm feeling because of that, because they wouldn't take a vaccine that didn't work the way they said it did in the first fucking place. Well, I'm not going to hate my neighbor. I'm going to love my neighbor. Because my neighbor is suffering under the same oligarchy that I'm suffering under, and he didn't cause it. The oligarchy did, and they don't want us to join together. And I have one message for the right and the left. If everybody on the right could just realize that not everybody on the left likes Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. We just want to end the wars and have health care that doesn't bankrupt us. That would go a long way. And if everybody on the left could just realize that not everybody on the right is a white supremacist Trump or gun nut, they're just fucking gun nuts. I love you, love each other. Come together. I'll see you at the next anti-war rally. Stay together.
Now, what MSNBC didn't show you is, yes, they showed you part of this crowd here. They didn't even show you when it's filled in. But also, if you notice, which you kind of can't see it completely on here either, is that behind Jimmy, there's a whole other crowd that you can't really see. It's one of those things, like if someone had like an aerial view, you could see it. So it's actually more people than they said it was. Now let's get into pros and cons. Pros, compared to some of the other rallies that I've been to, this one was actually pretty organized. Like, to be honest with you, like the people were doing the damn thing. Hello, Mary, what's up? It was pretty organized. I'll give them that. They had sound equipment. Like, these things are not cheap, you guys. Like, if you have planned an outdoor event before, sound equipment, that kind of stuff is expensive. From the moment I got there, I went to the press table and I said, I'm here, I'm so-and-so. They gave me my press pass. And so the area that I was in is that area that was fenced in. And then you see the rally, the protesters on the outside of those barricades, right? So I had no issues like getting in or getting that stuff done and set up. I will say, like, they were pretty much for the most part on schedule, which is not easy for people to do sometimes too. I've had to deal with that before, where things don't run on schedule. They said they were starting at 12:30. They started at 12:30. And then after the event, we left the Lincoln Memorial and we marched to the White House. And you can see that on my live stream. I'm not sure if everybody who streamed got that piece, but you'll see me like walking and talking to people. That's where like I got a quick interview with Garland Nixon, Colin. I ran into Black in the Empire when I was walking, and also Pasta from Convo Couch and Courtney Banks. She was also there. So it was great to meet and see a lot of people. Some of you guys who are in the chat now were there. I'm sorry if I couldn't stop and talk to everybody. It's kind of hard, like if I'm the one holding like the phone, streaming and trying to talk to people at the same time too. But it was actually really organized. So I'll give them that. Plus, cons. I mean, this is not a secret. I've said this before. I told you guys, if I organized this event, some of the people I still would have invited, but some of the people I would have not invited. I would have invited people like Margaret Kimberly, Jamu Baraka. I would have invited someone like Gerald Horn, Cornel West, although Cornel West might have been difficult to get because he's very, 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 very busy. I would have added them as well. When we talk about, one of the criticisms was the fact that there weren't more like Black voices. There are a list of people that I would have invited, and I would have probably invited those people first. But again, I didn't organize the event. Now, that being said, it was brought to my attention, and I think everyone needs to understand this, that apparently some of the people who were speakers actually reached out to the organizers and asked them if they could speak. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And like, I honestly did not know that until I got there. That's when I realized, I was like, oh, okay, that's different. So I think that's something that needs to be made clear for people to really understand. But one of the things I will say, it's been brought to my attention, and I was going to ask Caleb about this, but someone did just put this in the chat. President Jesus, Caleb's group apologized on Twitter for the flags. Yeah, so that is one of the criticisms that like that did not come from, obviously, from the organizers. Apparently, the people that you saw that had those Russian flags, those were people that were part of Caleb Maupin's group. So apparently they have issued an apology for that. I think it doesn't help the narrative, right? Like, it was easy for MSNBC to, oh, let me do this. It's a pro Russia rally because there's the flags. It was easy for them to do that, use that criticism. But there were also people there. I saw Ukraine flags too, but of course that was not captured. That wasn't captured. There was a video that was presented by Roger Waters. He sent the video because he couldn't be there in person. I think he's on tour in Europe right now. And Cynthia McKinney, I believe, sent a video earlier on. So someone keeps asking me, was Cynthia McKinney there? No, she was not there. Cynthia McKinney's in Bangladesh. So some of the people sent videos, and then there were some people, but most people were there in person. I also want to tell you guys, if you haven't heard it, please go listen to Pasta's speech, because he really points out the fact that both of these parties are just warmonger, money maker parties. So please check that out. Also, other things I will say, again, I think that for the most part, I felt like it was pretty organized, and I've been a part of a lot of rallies and it's not always that way. And so I'll give, credit for that. Again, as an organizer, I would have done things. There are things I would have done a little bit differently, but I was not an organizer for that event. I didn't see any animosity between people in the crowd. The people who were there agreed that we need to call for peace, that we need to stop these wars. And so when it came to that particular issue, people were able to come together and unite over that. The other issues, organize with other people with those things. I already know there's people I can organize with for Medicare for All. There's people I can organize with for student debt cancellation. Right? I know people, comrades who are really passionate about that have tried to organize for that before. I have my go-tos when it comes to organizing, who I will organize with over certain issues. There are certain people I'm going to organize with for policing. I have those go-tos. I think if you want people to organize with you and agree with every single political policy that you agree with, well, you just might as well just vote for people who are running on those types of campaigns, because that's essentially what you're asking for, in a sense. Like, it's like you're kind of asking for a politician to support all those policies. And I think a lot of us coming from that Bernie movement, that's where we get that from, because Bernie Sanders, because of the policies, brought people together that otherwise really would not have been together. And I think we need to talk about the fact that at that time, there was like bragging rights. And Nick talked about this. There were bragging rights during Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign to say, hey, I was convincing Trump supporters. I was convincing conservatives about Medicare for All. Those were bragging rights back then. But notice how that's not a bragging right now. Now, if you do that, you're smeared. So we need to ask ourselves, what is it really all about? And I will say to people, if you don't support something, then don't support it. But I'm not going to spend all my time and energy on Twitter. I'm not going to argue with these people on Twitter. I don't look at my mentions. So you're wasting your time. I'm just going to be real here. And then also, that time that you were spending crapping on events, and I've seen the same people do it over and over. Now, at this event, there were some different people, but for the most part, there's a particular group of people that constantly come out and smear any type of action. And I've seen them do it multiple times. I saw them do it with the Medicare for All rally too. You need to ask yourself, why don't they take that time back and organize their own thing and do it the way that they want to do it? Because they don't intend to. That is never part of the plan. Some of these people, I've said before, are infiltrators. I've worked in organizing spaces with some of these people, and I could tell that they were really trying to stop the event from happening. They are not to be trusted. So I know who I can organize with and who I can't organize with. But if you're spending most of your time on Twitter trying to stop people from doing something and you're not doing anything, you're looking a little sus. You look a little suspect. Some of these people have families. It's really weird to me. Like, you're not spending any time with your family. How are you on Twitter 24/7? Don't you have kids? Don't you have like a husband or something? What is wrong with people? It's not a healthy place to be.